Hello, mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Hey guys, welcome to Antibuddies. This is our fourth career talk, and we've got a guest with us today. I mean, actually, it's a second career talk. We had Maria speak to us about science writing in our last episode, and today we've got Puneet Chaddha, who will speak to us about startups in biosciences. Welcome to the show, Puneet.
A pleasure to be here, Jatin. Thank you so much.
Let me tell you guys about Puneet. We were batchmates during our undergraduate days. I know him since then, and right now he's a chief operating officer at one of the startups, Aevis Diagnostics. And I'm very excited to know about his company, how he got there, what's his journey about, and what kind of tips we can get from him about startups generally. Okay, this is one of the paths. I would say this is one of the possible paths you can take after completing your master's degree or a PhD if you're interested, and clearly a very lucrative path if everything goes well. All right. I'm gonna transfer the stage to you, Puneet, now.
Fantastic, Jatin. Thank you so much for that intro. Yeah, I guess as we discussed, I'll just talk briefly about my background, and then of course talk to you and everybody who's going to be listening to this podcast what I'm passionate about, and then that really is my startup, Avis Precision RX. So yeah, my name is Puneet Chaddha. I'm a co-founder and I head the business development and operations efforts at Avis. And of course, the official term for that is COO because you want to be fancy and all that, and you want to be in the C-suite and stuff. But yeah, my journey, like Jatin told you, started in VIT. I was doing my bachelor's in biotechnology. I always was interested in biology as a whole. I was never a computer science geek. So while a bunch of my other friends, they went to take the computer science route, even back in high school in India, I decided to do biology, and then naturally I gravitated towards biotech because I just didn't want to become a doctor. So, so apparently that's how it works. Is if you don't become a doctor, you do something like biotech or biomed. But yeah, I got to VIT again. Like I said earlier, no regrets. Fantastic college with some state of the art like professors, equipment, people. Just lots of opportunities for somebody that wanted to really pursue this field, or that's this major as we like to call it in the US. But in my third year of college, I started realizing that I think my interest started gravitating more towards the business, economics, and finance aspect of things. And I realized I wasn't somebody who would maybe want to pursue, education too much further. And then, like, of course, like, kudos to people who are doing PhDs because, man, you guys are the hardest workers on this planet. Like I can tell you this because I work with PhDs myself. I work with MDs. I think maybe I was too chicken, so I didn't do that. But so because I wanted to really pursue something that kind of allowed me to take a look at healthcare from more of a macro perspective. I decided to apply to a bunch of programs. I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into just maybe let's say healthcare administration or policy or operations. So I was applying to like healthcare management programs, and I was very very fortunate to get accepted to Johns Hopkins for their masters in healthcare management. So it was a 1 year fast track course where I was really at the epicenter of just this medical and entrepreneurial innovation and just being a part of this community that really is at the forefront of innovation in the medical space. So it was really fantastic being able to communicate, talk, network with individuals that were doing this innovation. Of course, talking to professors, key opinion leaders in the industry. I think the best part about attending a business school was yes, just being given the opportunity to network. I think that was absolutely fantastic. And while in college, because I was an international student, of course, my goal upon graduating was, I have to, I have to earn money, I have to do something after my college. And really, that was my sole focus of that entire year. It went by in a blur, honestly. If you ask me right now, I don't remember too much about my masters, which is probably bad. But I think I am selling the Hopkins name and brand pretty well, so that's there. But yeah, I graduated, was frantically searching for jobs. As an international student, it is not easy. Also, I was doing a non-STEM course, so I had just 1 year of OPT that I could, benefit from. So a lot of obviously corporations and offices weren't ready to hire me because they weren't, willing to immediately do the H-1B and all that stuff. So, I think I applied for like 250 plus jobs, got maybe around 5 or 8 I think I was 7 interviews in total, and then finally landed a job with a healthcare consulting company called Alcimed. Worked with them for a while. My role there was a business development manager, and really, I woke up every day thinking that okay, like although my team is fantastic, although I love the work that they're doing, but it wasn't something that was waking me up and keeping me up at night. I wanted to do something. I was always of the firm opinion that I wanted to do something bigger than myself. And I've come into this world like, and it's like this, and I want to leave it like maybe just an incremental or tad bit better than when I first got here, kind of. So I always had this thought process. What I was really really fortunate for is having met my co-founder, actually one of my co-founders, Yash. So he was doing his master's in finance. Yash is unfortunately unable to join us today because he's down with COVID. He's in India visiting his parents. He got COVID, got hit pretty hard by the symptoms. But yeah, met Yash in at Johns Hopkins, and he basically, our wavelengths match a lot in terms of what our values, what our vision, what our philosophy is, and I think that is why we were on the sidelines while he was pursuing his work in private equity and stuff in New York City. I was doing my healthcare consulting and all that. We were still ideating and brainstorming on the sidelines because we both just weren't happy doing what we were doing. And it was come April, I think April or May, yeah, April or May of 2019. Yep, when we decided to just take the plunge. We were like, okay, we have an X dollars of savings. We looked at our bank accounts. We were like, hey man, like if we're gonna do this together, like we have to be honest about our financials. So we took a look at each other's bank accounts, and we were like, and the first thought was if we wanted to set up operations in New York City or the Bay Area, or maybe one of the other big startup hubs that people know of in the United States, we would have basically been pumping money into making a landlord rich, right? And that really wasn't our goal. We wanted to pump in as much money into product development. Till date, we still believe in product-led growth at Aevis, and I think that's something that was established, at our grassroots. So yeah, we were looking at where to move, and I think 2018's Business Insider issue stated Oklahoma City to be the sixth best place to start a startup in the United States. And here, me and Yash were reading this issue, and we were like, "What is Oklahoma City? Like what? Like people have heard about the East Coast, people have heard about the West Coast. Nobody really talks about what's happening in the middle." What was fantastic is upon doing a little more of a deep dive, we saw that Oklahoma City has a very tight knit medical entrepreneurial community. They also have a lot of venture capital firms that are local to the area that are investing in making companies, startups, corporations grow from the ground up to whatever they want in the area. Lots of angel investors too. So yeah, we started making connections with a lot of people from the medical community in Oklahoma, even when we were just in New York City. Started talking to a few angel investors who indicated that yeah, like they would prefer if we were in that region because they could help facilitate certain connections that would be good on the ground. And of course, this was before COVID. So yeah, decided to make that move. From April or May of 2019 to almost September of 2019, we were doing all the legwork and groundwork that goes into really getting the startup off the ground. All from incorporation to like all the corporate compliance, and just making sure that we have like a pitch deck, executive summary, some of these basic startup collaterals that people talk about, like a business plan and all that ready. And yeah, we were actively pitching to investors as well. Where we got really lucky is, or lucky, or I mean, I would say maybe it was our hard work bearing fruit. Was in September or October of 2019 is when we struck our first, and this is our foremost data access partnership till date. And this is with Cerner, Electronic Health Record Systems, which is the second biggest EHR vendor in the United States. And we actually got it through an academic partnership. So we're currently partnered with Oklahoma State University's Center for Health Systems Innovation. And through them, we basically, struck a milestone-based partnership that has given us access to a lot of patients' worth of electronic health record data. But yeah, it's been a fantastic journey since. We've grown from just two people, which was me and my co-founder Yash, to a core team plus advisor, advisor board of like 8 people in total. everybody is incredibly value driven. I think that's something that we've been very, very particular about. And I say this all the time to everybody I talk to, is that, hiring is like the most tedious and strenuous, but it's the most rewarding process of this journey, because when you're able to find, like, those couple of individuals that have the same mindset, value, and vision as you do, that they basically see the same future that you do. It really is, it's heartwarming, it's motivating, to see them wanting to work towards that with you. And sometimes they're even more motivated than you, and help you out on days when you're feeling low. So yeah, it's been fantastic. We've made a lot of progress. But yeah, I guess that's just my journey. I kind of missed out on a few of the internships I'd done in the middle, but that really doesn't count for much. Let's just say I don't have too much of corporate experience. And yeah, I did dive headfirst into the startup world. But yeah,
Hey Puneet, I got a question. How much of the business school do you think helped you get here? The things you learned in the business school.
I do think more than the education I received, it was being in that environment. And I will forever be grateful to Hopkins, because they have given me that platform. And like I told you, right, I'm not even joking when I say selling the Hopkins brand has been instrumental to me making certain connections, and they are still helping me till date. I'm very well connected with Johns Hopkins Technology Ventures that do help startups. Even in Hopkins, alumni startups get off the ground. They help make connections, and I am still in touch with a lot of my professors who are helping facilitate connections as well. So more than the education and value add, I think, at the end of the day, as cliche as it might sound, education is what you make of it. But especially in a business school where you go in with that purpose, like, you know what, you're going there. I think what you have to truly understand is, yeah, like, you have to make the most of it, because you have to be networking, you have to be talking to people. It is definitely different from pursuing maybe any other degree, especially when you're from a business school. But yeah, I definitely think Hopkins has really, really helped me get this far. Yeah.
I had a similar question, that whether your networking at John Hopkins helped you more, or your job experience as a consultant.
So in my job as a consultant, so I wasn't a consultant. I worked with a healthcare consulting company, but my role was a business development manager. So I was really the one getting the deals in, or the clients in, for the consultants to then work on these projects. So what's interesting is, yeah, not too many of my contacts that I made through consulting actually, like, maybe came through and helped me in my startup, right? That definitely is not something that I benefited from. But what I really, really have to thank my, and maybe a shout out to my boss, Rod. His name is Rodolphe Renac. He was very instrumental in being a mentor, in like helping me out really navigate sales and business development. Because a lot of people, you think about sales, you're like, what you're doing, you're just like kind of like, talking to somebody and you're trying to convince them to get something, right? There really is an art of doing it. And I think he really helped me develop very strong grassroots for sales and business development, which is the core of any startup. Whether you're a doctor, whether you're a PhD, whether you're a master's graduate, irrespective of what kind of a startup owner you are, at the end of the day, you are selling yourself, your team, and your company 24/7. So there definitely was a lot that I did learn at Alcement, and I would say a majority of the rest of it was honestly just a sales process, right? The more people I talk to, the more likely it is that somebody will, let's say, maybe say yes, or somebody would be willing to talk to me. And yeah, that really is what helped us, just having that, just being persistent, having that, like, just constant need to just succeed. I think that's what always helps.
Also, this is a cruel question, but since you just started before COVID and yours is a pharmacy company, did COVID in any way help you boost your company?
So what's very interesting is, because we just started, like, officially started operations. I mean, like, in September, October of 2019, when we struck our first data access partnership. The coolest part about what we're doing is, because we are engineering a healthcare technology, right? And I guess this would be, a logical point in this conversation to just even talk about Aevis in a nutshell, right? So what my team and I are engineering is called Precision RX, and what it is a machine learning powered clinical decision support tool that would sit in a doctor's EHR system and spell out drug recommendations for helping the doctor manage patients with chronic ailments, right? Now, the first disease group that we've decided to tackle to prove out our technological and business model is type 2 diabetes. So, what's very interesting about the health tech space in general is that everything is remote and online in the cloud, right? Um, COVID has helped me a lot because I've been able to benefit from, from being able to access talent all across the United States and even across the globe. One of my key physician advisors and core team members, Dr. Krishna Shishadri, he's actually a board certified endocrinologist and a software come data scientist. So he's this insane brainchild, but he works in Chennai. So, he works from Chennai, and, he has been instrumental to our success. But it's amazing being able to collaborate with people across different time zones because of COVID, because people now, of course, are more willing and open to these kind of interactions. And it's been very, very instrumental to our team's success. But also, I mean, we aren't at a stage where our product is not out in the market yet. We're still in a prototyping phase. So fingers crossed we hit all our milestones. We would hope to commercialize by the end of this year. But again, so maybe then I'll see if my product has had any impact in the pharma space or not.
Okay, I
Okay,
think.
I would like to
Oh, yeah.
ask.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah, go for it.
yes. Okay, you talked about diabetes, and I want to ask, is there any particular reason why you decided to go for that ailment first?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a multifold approach. Me and my or multifaceted. It's a multifaceted answer. The first is me and my co-founders, family, and like close friends, family friends. They do suffer from type 2 diabetes and related ailments like cardiovascular diseases, hypertension, chronic kidney disease, obesity. So it really was being able to see secondhand what these diseases, what these conditions essentially have an impact on their, life. And, we've seen secondhand them going to the doctor's office, being prescribed a drug or a prescription treatment plan, then them going back a couple, months later, and then, changing the medication over and over again. So it was motivated by that. Second, I do believe when we were looking and scouting for areas, where to start the company, and when Oklahoma came on the map, unfortunately, or fortunately for us, Oklahoma, the incidence of type 2 diabetes in Oklahoma is nearly twice as much as it is in the United States. So in the US, it's 1 in 10 people. In Oklahoma, it's 1 in 5. So in terms of having a potential, pilot or go-to-market, strategy that we could operate out of Oklahoma was obviously, another reason why we wanted to get into this. But yeah, like type 2 diabetes, again, market is huge. The potential for disruption is massive, even if we get just a small chunk of that pie. So yeah, from a startup perspective, I think those were the reasons that we decided to get into type 2 diabetes.
In general, working with type 2 diabetes in US is one of the most funded area, even for research. Yeah.
You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. And we obviously have tried to see like, grant opportunities and all this stuff. What's awesome is, and maybe this is good news I can say in the podcast, is I literally a week ago became a permanent resident of the United States, finally. So, yay, like, another part of my journey has been trying to navigate just the immigration system. And I think it's crazy because once I graduated from Hopkins, I had that 1 year OPT. And when my OPT got done, I had to figure out how to continue staying on the US, right? And then the only logical option to me was, and that was put in front of me, and that I obviously explored on, was joining a full time master's course and doing a full time CPT, which is curricular practical training, right? So I currently am getting my master's in information technology management, and I'll graduate from the university that I'm getting it from come June. But you know, it did really help me out. This university was able to give me this day one CPT. I was able to continue working for Aevis. And obviously, it is another added stress because you're having to manage academics and running a startup at the same time. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't trade it for anything else. So I'm just glad that I'm glad my PR is here. And the reason I brought that up was now our company would be eligible for grant opportunities with SPI or STTR and all that. And then that's definitely on our set of things to do. So yeah.
For our audience, I would like to say that being an immigrant, it is the rules are very different for you compared to citizens, and especially if, for Puneet, who's in a startup, a lot of grants, a lot of fundings are not available to the same at the same degree to the immigrants as citizens. So getting a permanent residency clearly helps a lot. Now you're on equal footing with everybody else who's in the same country. So yeah,
Yes.
that's really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's actually similar for PhDs as well. Some grants that's not available to researchers who are coming from an international background. So there is slight disadvantage, but well, that's life.
That's
Everybody's good.
yeah, I don't know. I think that's a separate. There's a different tangent we can go on and have a
Yeah.
different podcast about this. But
Right.
yeah,
Right. Right.
that is true. That is true.
Okay. I think this would be a good time, Puneet. Tell us about Avis more.
Yes.
Sorry, before you move on,
No,
could I just draw you back a bit? I was wondering,
no, of
because
course.
you mentioned biotechnology and currently studying that. So I was just wondering, has it in any way helped your journey so far, like your studies in biotechnology?
Yes. What is very interesting is because at the core of what we're doing, the core of what we're doing does relate to, let's say drugs that help a patient's help lower patients HbA1c level. And what's unique about these drugs is they're all performing this same function of lowering a person's HbA1c or blood sugar levels, but they're all accessing different like metabolic and physiological channels in your body to do so, right? And at the core of this problem, what we're trying to address is let's give this doctor this secondary pair of clinical eyes that will allow them to really make a more data driven and statistically sound prescription decision. So I guess the kind of conversations I'm able to have with people, are much more informed. They're much more engaging, and it's because I have that background in biotechnology. Although I may not remember a whole lot from biotech, a shout out to all my professors who tried so hard, but unfortunately, I don't think I really, I excelled in my biotechnology studies. But at the end of the day, it did establish a very very strong base and foundation for just getting into this space of just technological innovations, because I was always fascinated by them. Like for me, the human body is just the most amazing like piece of technology that has been engineered by whoever. I mean, I'm not going to get all religious here because I'm not, by the way, but but yeah, but it is amazing, what the human body can do, and now what technology can help and aid the human body do as well. So it's just been fascinating just navigating through this journey. And yes, I think biotechnology did really help. So yes.
Yeah, maybe more than the subject details, it changed the way you think
Yes.
about, yeah.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, biotechnology is still fascinating to me. Like, when I'm not doing Avis, I'm reading about like, CRISPR or like, immunotherapies and all this. And it's just mind boggling to me. Like the way you're able to engineer at such a microscopic level in today's date and age is, it always blows my mind, right? I try to explain to my dad at home, and he's like, wait, and he's like, he's a computer programmer, so he's like, wait, you can do that, and I'm like, you can do that. So it's a very very fun conversation at home as well.
Any other question, guys, before we move on to the company details? Okay, the stage is yours, Puneet.
Fantastic, guys. So at this point, would you like me to just do an official pitch to you guys? Does that make sense? By sharing my screen, it maybe be like a 12 to 15 minute pitch. Do we have that time?
Oh yeah, sure. I got no money, but I've got good wishes.
Oh, this is all I need, man. I need well wishers along my journey. Honestly, that is what I need. Okay, give me 1 second, guys. Let me just make sure I have um, the tab open. Yep, this looks like. Alrighty, share screen, and tell me when you can see this, guys.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okie dokie. Well, here goes my 2,565th pitch. No, I'm just kidding. But it probably is that much as well. But yeah, guys, I'll get started with the pitch. So, a good morning to everyone present. My name is Puneet Chaddha. I am a co-founder and head the business development and operations efforts at Aevis. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present to you the future of healthcare prescriptive practices Precision RX, a machine learning powered clinical software that would sit in a doctor's computer and spell out drug recommendations for helping doctors manage patients with chronic ailments. The first disease group we've decided to tackle to prove out our technological and business model is type 2 diabetes. Let's dive straight into some alarming numbers. This graphic shows us that a whopping $90 billion is spent each year in the United States on the medication management lifecycle for treating type 2 diabetes. 70% of these costs can be attributed to prescription medications and their frequent switching, and the rest, 30%, to physician consultations and repeat doctor office visits. Zooming in on the bigger picture, we see that a type 2 diabetic patient incurs $17,000 of costs every year in managing their type 2 diabetes. And 50% of these costs, as can be seen on this graph, can be attributed to the medication management lifecycle that I spoke of earlier. Now let's zoom in on one aspect of this, which is the doctor office visits. So on average, a type 2 diabetic patient visits a doctor's office 4 times a year, and according to our primary and secondary market research, it takes anywhere from 1 to 3 years, depending on the severity of your type 2 diabetes, for a doctor to arrive at a stable prescription treatment plan to help manage your type 2 diabetes. What Precision RX wishes to offer is the ability for the doctor to arrive at the stable and correct treatment plan for each unique patient within 1 to 3 visits. And here's how we'll do it. Aevis Precision RX is a machine learning powered clinical decision support tool that would sit in a doctor's EHR system and spell out drug recommendations for assisting in managing patients with type 2 diabetes. Our end users will be given the ability to order on-the-fly prescription recommendations through seamless EHR integration, and this will allow them to order an unlimited number of tests for each month that they sign up to use the platform, thereby allowing our end users to live up to the age-old promise of precision medicine. Moving into the more business side of things, Aevis has determined that its end customers would be primary care physicians and allied healthcare professionals in the United States that have prescription privileges, like nurse practitioners and physician assistants. So that puts our TAM, or total addressable market, at a little over 1 million potential end users. However, our ideal end markets would be the aforementioned stakeholders that work in health institutions such as integrated delivery networks, single payer systems, are a part of provider-sponsored plans, or work at what we like to call tech-savvy independent physician practices. An example of integrated delivery networks are Kaiser Permanente, Mercy, Integris, single-payer systems, like the VA, the MHS, and TRICARE as well. Now, our business model is pretty simple and straightforward, right? We want to commercialize our tool using a software as a service model, which will charge the health systems that employ the stakeholders, our potential stakeholders, $200 per user per month, and this end user would then be given the ability to order an unlimited number of tests for each month that they sign up to use the platform. So if we're taking a look at our SOM, which is a serviceable obtainable market, we obviously have a huge number over here. So if we do end up achieving a target of 100,000 paying users for each year, and this could be in a span of 7 to 8 years as our target, then we could have an ARR somewhere close to $240 million, right? So this really is what our initial target is for this market. Now, let's talk about the defensible moat that really Aevis has engineered, right? So what our product development thesis and philosophy has been is a big data analytics one, right? What Aevis does is we strike one-off data access partnerships with a variety of health institutions. Now, they could be electronic health record vendors, they could be integrated healthcare systems, they could be university research hospitals, public biobanks, to name a few. Now, the first and foremost of these proprietary partnerships has been with Cerner Electronic Health Record Systems, as I was talking to you guys earlier. And basically through Cerner, we were able to strike a milestone-based partnership that over the course of 8 or 9 months gave us access to their entire type 2 diabetes patient repository of 3.6 million unique type 2 diabetic patient records. So that really has been the primary data set that we have been using to model out our first prototype, right? So Aevis's current prototype, what it does is it provides drug recommendations for 4 of the most commonly prescribed drug classes used to manage type 2 diabetes out of the 11 drug classes that have been approved by the FDA. It answers a very basic question. Is drug class X suitable for this patient or not? And we can do so currently with almost a 90% accuracy across the board. Now, what's very important to note here is, of course, although the rest of these data sets that you see over here are very minuscule in comparison to the 3.6 million patients that we have with Cerner, what's very important for us as a team and when we're engineering a health tech solution that uses AI is for our model to have generalizability and replicability across the board. So as a part of our product development, thesis and progress, we do not want our machine learning models to be overfitted to just one data set, and hence we've got access to other data sets currently as well that are being used for cross-validation purposes. So to see if the predictions that the model is being able to make on the Cerner dataset, can they be made on an All of Us research program dataset? Can they be made on a specialty endocrinology dataset that we've acquired from a doctor? Can they be made on an NIH dataset that we have acquired as well? So that really is in terms of, this is probably the defensible moat that we've engineered till date. Now let's get to the best and the fun part, right? We launched our prototype around 3 months ago, and what we've been doing is we've been actively demoing our prototype to a variety of stakeholders, and especially potential stakeholders like I mentioned earlier, primary care physicians and allied healthcare professionals that have prescription privilege in the US. Now, what you guys see on your screen over here is a synthetic patient's electronic health record chart. So this is something that our potential end user is very used to seeing on their computer. And we wanted to mimic it to make sure that, they really understand the power of our tool. So let's say this is patient Aditya, right? Aditya's male, he's 56, he's single, and unfortunately has no insurance in the United States, which is terrible. When a doctor or potential end user takes a look at this electronic health record chart, they're expected to treat Aditya as if he were a new patient being seen by the doctor. So the doctor really can look at the overall health. They can take a look at certain variables that they would be used to seeing. They can take a look at certain variables that are closely related to making a prescription decision with type 2 diabetes, like the creatinine or the urea nitrogen. Or of course, the most important of these features is the HbA1c level. And as can be seen over here, although Aditya was kind of in the safe for some time, his HbA1c levels have been on the rise. And according to his diagnosis or medication over time, according to his history, he would need to be treated with some sort of medication or treatment plan. So we ask the doctor to ingest these variables, we give them some time, and then they're expected to make a prescription recommendation by running these factors through their quote unquote biological algorithm, right? And we ask them to figure out whether they would prescribe four of the most commonly prescribed drug classes to this patient or not. What we do next is then we tell them that here's how this would work. You would simply click to order Precision RX. So Precision RX, how it would work is it would parse all the data at the back end by obtaining all the clinical factors that are necessary in making a prescription decision. And our output would simply be this pop-up window, right? This pop-up window would give the doctor accurate anti recommendations. So the reason we call them anti recommendations is because we are telling the doctor which drugs not to use as opposed to telling them which drugs to use. So as you can see on the screen over here, you can see that two of the drug classes, sulfonylureas and DPP-4 inhibitors, are likely to fail according to the model's outputs, right? So which means that these are drug classes that could potentially cause an adverse drug reaction in the patient, or they might not help get the patient down to their, the patient's blood sugar levels down to the optimal band that the doctor has decided. Now, for example, TZDs are not likely to fail. So this is something that the doctor could go ahead with a little more confidence, and they could use this to then basically make a more data-driven and statistically sound prescription decision for the patient. Now, unfortunately, Bigonads were unable to predict. We're trying to reduce the number of yellow outputs we get, but this could be because of the fact that there wasn't enough data to make this prediction. But we're, of course, trying to reduce the number of yellow bars that we have as a part of our predictions window. We did so. Like I said, we have been demoing this product to a lot of healthcare stakeholders. This is 30 plus. I have to update this. We've been speaking to almost 50 doctors now, and this is not just doctors, of course, even allied healthcare professionals. And really, what we do is we structure, a hybrid interview with them. So what it is a 40-minute interview The first 15 minutes of which is dedicated towards really understanding the physician's pain points, as can be seen on the slide. So, really understanding how long an average appointment is, how long they take to diagnose and select drugs, and really where they're getting their secondary opinions from right now, right? So, a lot of people talk about static clinical decision support tools that draw their information from public consortia, from guidelines established by public consortia. And some of these names are very, very common in the marketplace, like Hippocrates and UpToDate. Of course, they talk to their peer group, and there are websites these days where they have to go to, they have to input information and do all that, right? But what we do is we have that consultative interview where we don't tell them about Precision RX and we understand their pain points. And then what we do is we show them Precision RX, we walk them through our product development journey, and then we really understand why they love or hate the tool. So I've obviously distilled a lot of the findings into this one slide. So what's fantastic is that 95% of the doctors we talk to are really interested to use the tool if it would implement it in their integrated healthcare system, and they really want to stay updated with the product development progress because they are intrigued by what we are doing. They're of course impressed by the data volumes that are being used. We have to consider this, that when doctors, of course, they're very scientific individuals. When they read papers that are published by public consortia, they see studies that are conducted on maybe a couple thousand of patients, right? And that's what they really are using to then, they have faith in these studies, and they're confident that these are informing their clinical decisions very accurately. So they're very impressed that we are using over 3.6 million patients worth of data to then engineer our product. The biggest value add to the doctor is our ability to give them accurate anti-recommendations. So just emphasizing again what not to prescribe. And the feature ask that we get time and time over again, and this is something that we've incorporated into our product development already, is the ability for us to have a high degree of explainability for the drug recommendations. So the current landscape for AI-based clinical decision support tools is as such. A lot of these tools are essentially black box models that really don't provide the clinician an explanation as to how the model arrived at that answer, right? Like what sucks for a scientific individual is just having this nagging thought in your brain that what if they're just flipping a coin or rolling a dice at the background? How will I know how these people are telling me what to prescribe or what not to prescribe? So what we do provide the clinician is a high degree of explainability, and how we do this is by taking advantage of explainability in machine learning that has come a long way, right? There are certain ways of doing this. It's one of them is through a SHAP plot. I'm not going to get into the weeds with what a SHAP plot is, but it basically lists in order of decreasing importance the clinical factors that were used in making a prescription decision. So we show this to the physicians, of course, those that are interested, and we have a very detailed discussion with them as to why these factors were chosen, why they were important, why they weren't. And then we have been taking constant feedback from our close, core team and physician advisors into, why some factors might want to be eliminated, why we might want to eliminate some factors that might be introducing bias into the systems, into our predictions as well. So that's been a fantastic iterative journey in our product development progress and process as well. The second of the most important feature asks is the ease of usage, right? And I spoke of this earlier briefly. A doctor is a very, very, a medical professional has a very, very busy day, right? They do not want to be given a tool that would disrupt the regular clinical workflow. A lot of times doctors are given, CDSTs that they can access from their phone, where they have to input some information on their phone, and, a potential prescription recommendation pops up. You can use this, you can't use this. They also are given the ability to use, some tools, that will take them to a new window and again have them input information. Some of our close competitors, which are again static clinical decision support tools like Hippocrates and UpToDate, are integrated into their EHR systems. But again, all these tools are doing is reinforcing clinical knowledge at point of care. They aren't telling the doctor anything new that they don't know. It's just that the doctor is so overwhelmed with information, especially a primary care physician, that is treating a variety of chronic ailments and just ailments in general in the day. All it's doing is reinforcing their clinical decision at point of care and not adding anything new to their decision. So that really is important to us, is for our ability to be literally a click to order report that would allow the doctor to order this report from within the EHR system. And like I showed earlier, it would be a simple pop-up window in the EHR system that would allow them to just make that decision at point of care without really having to disrupt their clinical workflow. So what we're doing right now, and this is more of the startup side of things, is we're raising a $1 million pre-seed round. Just to talk about a bit of a funding history, back in February of 2020, my team and I raised a family and friends round to the tune of $127,000. We had 3 participants, and that really has given us a runway and is giving us a runway till the end of August or September. So of course we are at the tail end of our raise. We've come a long way with the money we raised. We were able to, of course, get access to over 3.6 million patient records with Cerner. We got access to 3 additional data sets for cross-validation. We've engineered our first prototype, and we've grown our team from 2 to 8 people. So we've done a lot of things with this money. And we have been fortunate enough to start off our pre-seed round on a high note because one of our previous investors, Mr. Piyush Patel, big shout out to him. He has committed $50,000 already to this round, and we just started raising in April. Around mid-April. So we are gunning to, hopefully close this round by the end of this year. It's going to be a slightly protracted raise. And we are doing it using pre-money safe notes. Not going to dive too much into that. That can be a separate session in itself. But yeah, we are doing a $1 million pre-seed round. And here's what we want to do with it. So the first and foremost of these goals is to have our MVP or minimally viable product ready by the end of this year, by Q4 of 2021. What our MVP would do is it would rank all 11 drug classes used to manage type 2 diabetes in increasing order of potential efficacy to the unique N+1 patient that is being managed by this doctor. And of course, what we would love to do and what our goal is to be able to integrate with one of the leading electronic health record providers in the United States, which is, of course, the natural and logical decision would be to integrate with Cerner at the back end. So once we accomplish that milestone, the next logical step is to start some pilot testing. Now, this could both be in a retrospective manner as well as in a forward-facing manner, with an emphasis, of course, on the retrospective aspect because we want to make our machine learning algorithm as pluralistic and population agnostic as possible. So it would definitely be partnering with a variety of physician offices or health systems or hospitals to do a retrospective trial essentially with them. So we would get access to their historic patient data. And then, of course, people who are interested to do a forward-facing one with us, we could pursue those conversations with them as well. The next big milestone we would hit would be our ability to do a large-scale trial with an ideal end buyer segment of ours. So as I had mentioned earlier in my serviceable addressable market slide, our ideal end buyers are integrated healthcare systems and single payer systems in the United States. So our ability to strike a large-scale retrospective come forward-facing trial with them come Q1 of 2023 would be another significant milestone. And the last milestone, but definitely not the least, is definitely a byproduct of all these, and it would be publishing of clinical white papers. Because at the end of the day, the doctor community really believes in a quantitative and scientifically sound approach, and we would want to publish our, or distill our findings into academic and clinical white papers. One of them is already underway, and this is as a result of the academic partnership that we have with Oklahoma State University. And we are publishing an academic paper with them with regards to the process that we are using to make our recommendations. So, of course, down the line, from the results of our pilot test and large-scale trial, we'd want to publish some more clinical white papers that are targeted more towards the medical community. With that, I would like to conclude my presentation, and I would like to leave the floor open for some questions. That was very long, guys. I do apologize.
Oh no, it's all right, man. So wait,
Yeah.
Puneet,
Before,
I got several questions.
before we move on to questions from us, I would like to address some questions from
Oh,
our
yeah.
audience.
Okay.
So Puneet, one of the audience asked, if I study in other fields such as biochemistry or biomedical sciences, would the job scope almost the same? Would the job scope be almost the same as biotechnology?
Yes, and I'm assuming this is more so just talking about is this related to getting into startups or just what the professional world holds for you depending on your like me?
It is based on the startup.
Oh, it's based on the startup. So again, right, like I mean, if you take a look at my startup, at the end of the day, I am the face of the startup and I'm somebody that's talking to, like, for example, you to other stakeholders. I don't have a background in computer science or data science or ML or AI, right? I do have a background in biotechnology, which has helped me get to this stage, but I've had to expand my knowledge horizon a lot. So what you have to really, really, really understand if you're getting into a startup is you have to come in it with an open mind. Because one thing is obviously coming into it as an experienced professional. Let's say I was 40 years old, I already had two startup successes. I'm coming into that with all this experience. But as a young entrepreneur, you have to come into it knowing that, and I'm going to quote Steve Jobs, is you knowing that you have to hire smart people to tell you what to do. You can't tell them what to do, right? So I will be very honest with you. I am the dumbest person on my team. I'm not even ashamed of it. I'm the only one with a master's degree. Everybody else is PhD, postdoc, or MD, right? So really, I do know, and they come with professional experience, years and years of it. So what is fantastic, and the mindset you have to imbibe is this willingness to learn, and you have to set your ego and everything aside, right? Because you have to understand and know that if you're getting into this and you're young and you really don't know much about the space, you have to be ready to ingest a lot of information. You have to be ready to understand all this, and then you have to, of course, be ready to then be able to replicate and speak about this with a high degree of confidence. So as long as you have that, in mind, I think, then yes, the startup journey is for you. No, but there's a lot that I'm leaving out about why startups might suck. But anyway, but yes, from an educational standpoint, yes, absolutely. If you have that mindset, then it really doesn't matter where you're coming from, what your major has been. I think you can pursue it as long as you have an open mind.
Okay. And we also have a lot of questions in YouTube. So do you see a future where precision diagnostic tools become an integrated part of medical students training?
Oh, this is fantastic. Who asked this? Shout out to this person.
Pawan.
Pavan asked this. Oh, I love it. Fantastic. Pavan, my friend, yes. We are very early in the stages to think about this, but if you think about the grand vision that our company has, it is of a utopian world in which a doctor or a medical professional is performing their true role in being a consultant and advisor to the patient, and the grunt work of parsing data and really arriving at a prescription decision is left to precision RX, right? So basically, what this vision we have is we want to usher in the age of fully autonomous prescription management. And how that would relate to CME is, we've heard a lot of times, especially from allied healthcare professionals and younger residents and people we talk to, is that a majority of their discussions with their seniors, with the senior doctors, revolves around what medications to prescribe, right? Because it isn't easy ingesting just tons of this information. I know doctors are great at ingesting information because that's what they've been preparing their whole life to do, right? And that's what they've been doing their whole life. But yes, it would be very interesting if somewhere down the line we would be able to collaborate with an institute that is more academic focused, a medical institute, and incorporate this into a curriculum. What we already see happening is some of the more younger residents that are coming into the professional workforce are already learning a lot about AI and ML as a part of their curriculum because they need to be aware of the technologies that are being made available to them that can be used at point of care, that can be used as a part of the decision making process. So yes, it would be fantastic in the near future or in whatever, even the potential distant future, for us to be, to incorporate some sort of an educational component as a part of our journey. Yeah.
Okay, the next question is, do you see Aevis starting to incorporate AI and ML tools in its products, which can specifically help deal with unusual diagnostics and formulate bespoke treatment plans?
So yes and no. So the pillar of healthcare or the no, let me just formulate my thoughts. My apologies. So there are several pillars of AI of healthcare that AI is disrupting, right? we have this predictions and diagnoses piece that is being disrupted massively. It has been, you've seen radiology, you've seen diagnoses, all these being done very, very accurately by AI, and ML algorithms. You also see novel compound manufacturing for example, orphan diseases, or even just in terms of arriving at the correct therapy, right? Like, before it was a trial and error approach. Now you have AI ML tools that are able to, obviously do this kind of compound engineering in silico, right? They're doing it in the computers itself. This pillar of prescription management, however, that we are tackling is highly untapped. It basically is the pillar of prescription medications that already exist in the market that are approved by these public consortia. But again, unfortunately, for chronic ailments, they aren't being targeted, hyper targeted, or hyper stratified to each patient. So that really is the pillar that we're trying to tackle. And yes, we are using AI and ML to do so. The core of our engineering is using machine learning. The best part about machine learning is that it is very good at arriving at answers, of ingesting large amounts of data for constrained problems, right? So if you define a very constrained problem, which in our case is, we don't want adverse drug reactions, we don't want the HbA1c levels to shoot up, we don't want hyper and hypoglycemia. These are just few of the factors that we consider. If you tell the machine learning model that and give it the correct features, it's basically which are its eyes that it used to make this to make its decisions, then yes, it can make very accurate predictions for you. Because at the end of the day, and again, we always market ourselves as a supplementary tool to doctors. A doctor at a given point of time may be able to ingest, let's say, 15, 20 factors about a patient, right? But their brain also has its limitations, right? Maybe they're at their A game when they're treating the first patient right off the bat at 8:30 in the morning. What happens when a patient comes in at 5 p.m.? They're mentally exhausted. It is a tiring job. We want to take that tiring job away from the doctor and give it to an algorithm that can take into consideration 100 plus features about the patient, and hence arrive at a more data driven decision about this patient regarding the treatment plan.
The next question, you may have heard it from some doubtful investors or doctors. So do you see a point in future where AI-driven algorithms challenge or override the doctor's decisions? And do you see a clash between technology and the human element in medicine becoming a zero-sum game?
So what's interesting, I think this is all also like a marketing play. What we've done in the past is through our conversations and customer market discovery, these are a lot of things that you'd have to do as a startup, is really understanding who your ideal end customer is, right? For example, our initial thesis was we thought that endocrinologists could benefit from this the most, and they're the gold standard for treating type 2 diabetes. What we soon realized was that endocrinologists are the gold standard, and there's a reason why they are. It's because they are the best at treating type 2 diabetes. So they really aren't people that would be very perceptive or receptive to our tools, and they usually do benefit from their peer networks and from using ancillary tools, like Epocrates Up to Date, and they are able to do precision medicine with that. But what about primary care physicians? What about allied healthcare professionals who have not done that extra 4 years of training to then become a board certified specialist, right? What about them? So what our goal is to expand the fidelity of a super specialist like an endocrinologist and give it into the hands of people that do not have this specialty. So what's interesting is, again, like just taking that one step further and making it a marketing play, we always call our tool a secondary pair of clinical eyes, right? At the end of the day, our tool is simply there to either reinforce or, yes, slightly challenge a doctor's decision. But what we don't want the doctor to do is 100% just rely on our tool blindly, right? Because there still is a human element involved in treating people that unfortunately our algorithm cannot see, right? Till the day we engineer a perfect humanoid, till the day where we're in this iRobot kind of world, like till that day we unfortunately will or fortunately will have to rely on the human element, and that's something that in my personal and humble opinion cannot be eliminated from medicine. I never see a world where somebody is being treated by a robot, because mimicking emotional intelligence is something that still hasn't been done, and I don't see happening for the next at least 30 to 40 years personally. So yeah.
From a patient point of view, it is really good that someone who cannot afford a specialist can still trust their medicine. because of a second eye from the software. So that's really good.
Yeah, very good
And
point.
yeah, the next question is, when you say that clinicians can order unlimited tests per month, what kind of test can you order?
So it is essentially going to be the precision RX test. So just to explain the clinical workflow, right? I'm a diabetic patient. I go to my doctor's office. Let's say I'm a recurring type 2 diabetic patient, and Precision RX hasn't been implemented. This is the first time I'm, going to my doctor's office, and this may be my second or third visit. And my medicines have been changing and all that, right? There already is information about me in the electronic health record system. I'm talking to my doctor. My doctor tells me about Precision RX, right? Oh, we have like this new CDST that's integrated in our clinical workflow. All I have to do, and they can even show, they can even turn the computer and show the patient that I'm just going to click to order this test. The reason it's going to be a click to order test is because we are going to integrate very deeply with the electronic health record system. And what we have to be grateful for, and this is a shout out to all health tech app developers across the globe, is the fact that we are benefiting from a lot of macro forces at play, right? Healthcare interoperability is becoming a huge topic of discussion these days. And you have these FHIR HL7 standards that are becoming very popular, that are allowing EHRs to be more interoperable, that are allowing EHRs to be more easy to read and write back to. So our ability to integrate deeply at the back end with an electronic health record system, let's say even starting off with Cerner, is something that is core to our success, right? We want this test to be a very simple, just click to order test that can be integrated into this clinician's workflow, such that when they click to order the test, it is basically our algorithm is parsing data. It is fetching the factors that it needs to from the EHR at the back end. It's parsing it through the algorithm, and pretty much at point of care, maybe in under 5 minutes would be our ideal goal if all the factors that we need to make the decision exist. They basically allow this algorithm to pop up a prescription recommendation on the window on the doctor's computer screen. I hope I answered the question. I may have gone off on a tangent. Yeah.
Puneet, if I understand correctly, when you said can place tests, they can place unlimited tests. The test is the prescription predicted by the AI.
Precision RX, yes.
It's not a blood test or something like that.
Oh no, my apologies. Yes, of course. So just to emphasize that. How we're really trying to differentiate ourselves from even some indirect competitors that are pharmacogenomic companies, right? That are trying to use underlying genetic markers to understand whether a drug would work or not, is having to avoid these lengthy test cycles, diagnostic approval, CPT approval codes, and all that, and essentially giving that doctor just that point of care clinical guidance and recommendation. So yes, now if the doctor if the patient seems to be presenting symptoms that may seem like, oh, we may have to take an HbA1c test, then yes, like for example, one of the features our algorithm uses currently is the maximum HbA1c level that the patient has had. So if in that point in time the doctor feels like the HbA1c levels may be off the charts, then our algorithm may not be able to make the most accurate prediction at point of care, because we don't have the maximum HbA1c level as a part of our recommendation. But again, what's great about this is because type 2 diabetes is unfortunately a chronic condition, if the doctor were to wait to basically order the patient's HbA1c test, upload it into the EHR, and then click to order our test would parse that algorithm, and then they could just send an e-prescription to the patient's pharmacy that is closest to them, right? So there are a lot of macro forces at play that are allowing for the adoption of such technologies.
The next question, I'm pretty sure all of us from Antibuddies had it too, that do you see a future for your company branching out into other diseases? And if so, which would be your next target?
Fantastic question. Let's say all goes good, we prove out our technological and business model in type 2 diabetes. Our goal, like I said, is to be a fully autonomous drug prescription management platform, right? So what our logical next step would be to essentially spill over into comorbidities, right? For example, what are the most comorbid conditions with type 2 diabetes? Cardiovascular diseases, chronic kidney disease, hypertension, obesity, right? So these would be the natural progression, and not necessarily in that order. But we would most likely spill over into cardiovascular diseases first, in my humble opinion, because 75% of cardiovascular patients are type 2 diabetics. So there would be a close overlap, and that in fact is already one of the factors that we consider while making a prescription recommendation. One of the features that we've engineered as a part of our model is just the overall cardiovascular health of the individual. So yes, the goal is to spill over into adjacent disease groups and really essentially occupy or help the primary care physician or end user as much as possible in taking away this grunt work of parsing that data and just giving it to that algorithm, so they can really focus on this on providing this consultant and advisory kind of role and playing that kind of role with the patient, because we want them focusing on telling them about lifestyle improvements and all this, and they shouldn't just be clickety clacking on a keyboard and focusing on an EHR screen, which they're doing almost 60% of the time now in an appointment. So yeah.
Puneet, I have a very generic question. So you've got a database of all the drugs that have been used, and you look at the data, see if it works or not for the patient's profile. What about if there is a new class of drug that recently gets discovered, and how do you integrate that?
So
What does the doctor say?
That's a fantastic question. So, for example, a lot of the feedback we've heard from doctors is right now the 4 drug classes we cover are bigonides, sulfonamides, DPP4Is, and TZDs, right? So, a lot of these drug classes are older drug classes, and the reason we've been able to model pretty accurate models with almost 90% accuracy is because the Cerner dataset that we have spans almost 20 years, and we have tons of like patient, treatment and outcome data that we've been able to model based off. Now, more recent drugs that have been approved, like GLP-1 agonists or SGLT2Is, right? These are drugs that doctors are using more and more often because they have better safety profiles, like even for like cardiovascular diseases and all that. Now, the truth of the matter is we would have to expand our data access sources to for us to be then be able to make these kind of predictions as well. What we're actively doing right now is is striking more data access partnerships, because we need to get more data with regards to some of these state of the art drugs that are coming out. But now let's say like 3 years down the line, like another like drug comes up, like a new Jardiance or some sort of drug comes up, then yes, it would be hard to model for that using our algorithm, because at the end of the day it relies on historic patient data and treatment and outcome data to make its decisions.
Okay.
I have a question about medical responsibility. So what if something goes wrong? Like, who's held accountable? Is it a doctor, or is it the manufacturer or the operator?
Right. So the bitter truth of this is it's all a marketing play. As a clinical decision support tool, depending on what kind of recommendations you're providing, you can either be held liable or not, right? Our tool will strictly be used for point of care in non-emergency situations. So it's not like the patient is in a coma or diabetic coma, or has some sort of an ulcer or whatever, and like we are trying to help with prescription medication over there. This is for the primary use case for 95% of type 2 diabetics that are treated at point of care by a primary care physician or allied healthcare professional. And it is oftentimes a case where an inaccurate prescription will not have a drastic impact. Now, what we're trying to do is eliminate these adverse drug reactions. And yes, at the end of the day, we market ourselves, or we would market ourselves upon commercialization, as a recommendation and suggestion tool. The final decision to use that recommendation or not is still in the doctor's hands. So that's a fantastic question. I wish I had more of a solid answer to it, but this is some of the thoughts that we've had as a team. And this is definitely something that we'd have to talk about a little more as we approach commercialization. But very good question. Yeah.
I have a question, because maybe not in every country, but for example, in Poland, many doctors rely on the recommendations of some doctor organizations. So for example, if you're a diabetes specialist, let's say, you would have these recommendations on what are the best drugs in this type of disease, in this particular patient. So I was thinking, are you planning to get recommendations from these doctors' organizations to use your tool? Because for many doctors, it might be a good incentive to use this tool.
Fantastic question, and I'm glad you had this forethought, Maria. So again, because because I can keep talking about this all day long, and I didn't really walk you guys through my product development process presentation. So as a part of that, what I do show is the features we engineer, and they can be classified into two categories. So one is the guidelines that are issued by public consortia, for example, the ADA, the FDA, the AACE in the United States, and even in Poland. Let's say there are multiple organizations, I'm sure, that contribute towards towards helping doctors understand what drugs to prescribe best. So yes, a majority chunk of the eyes that we engineer for our machine learning model, they do come from guidelines that are established by public consortia. But the way we distinguish ourselves is by engineering compound features. Now, the reason I call them compound features is because electronic health records have certain features that exist in them as is. What we do is we take that one step further, and our data team works in close conjunct with our medical team to then engineer compound features. So let's say we count the number of cardiovascular medications the person has been on. We figure out the number of normal clinical events that the patient has had. And these normal clinical events could be a normal BMI, a normal systolic, diastolic blood pressure reading, a normal HbA1c level. So we engineer compound features that indicate the overall good or bad health of an individual. And these are done under the supervision of doctors and machine learning professionals. So yes, you're absolutely correct. When we do talk to doctors, we do tell them that we of course consider guidelines, because at the end of the day we can't just start engineering from scratch. There are of course guidelines that have been put in place to not influence but to inform the decision of medical professionals. So yes, we do take those into consideration as well.
All right. Last thing from me would be, just for a balanced perspective, we got to know what all good can come out of a startup. What are the risks?
Nothing. No. If you succeed, then yes, you're in for a huge reward, which is obviously monetary. But if you go into it with that mindset, I'm going to be very blunt about it, you're never going to get there, right? Everybody on my team currently is in it to drive value, right? If we walk out of this on the streets and poor, we're fine with that. As long as we've moved the ball of precision medicine just an inch forward, that's what we are of the firm belief right now. And that really is something that has to propagate throughout the company. I think even till, let's say, up to the first 20 or 30 employees is what I imagine people to have the same exact mindset, because it's critical and crucial for you to want to drive value as opposed to want to make money. Just a quick insight into the kind of lifestyles me and my primary co-founder lead. Me and Yash, we share a salary, out of which we pump back 50 to 60% of that back into the company. So as long as I can eat 2 meals a day, as long as I can shower, as long as I have a roof over my head, I'm fine. That's all I need, and that's all he needs. And at the end of the day, yes, the people that work with us, again, I'm not gonna invade their personal lives, but I can tell that they are helping us out because they see value in what we're driving. So yes, if you are a human being that is of the same opinion, shares these kind of values, then yes, get into a startup, do it. But if you're not, and you really just want to make a big buck, and you dream of being a billionaire, and roaming around on yachts and all that stuff, then yeah, don't do it, because it misincentivizes an individual. You will be thrown off track, and it's just not a pretty journey to go down, I think. So yeah.
Thanks a lot. So what you're saying is, if you believe in your idea, your product, and everybody in your team believes in it, you got a chance. Else, if it's for money, good luck with that.
Good luck with that, exactly. Yeah, and this again is my humble and personal opinion, and I think it's because I'm also in healthcare. I don't know if this is across the board for all maybe startups, but again, this is I strongly believe in this, and this is what I want to preach. So yeah.
Okay, so anybody else with any questions? All right, I think this would be a good time to wrap up. Puneet, if one day you become a billionaire, remember you were one of our first guests.
Yes, absolutely. No, I'm going to give a huge shout out to you guys, and then a huge party, of course.
Thanks a lot. And everybody who's watching us today, either on Facebook or YouTube, thanks for joining us. You guys can leave a comment in YouTube or Facebook. And this video will be uploaded, I think, after 24 hours when the services they process the videos. And with that, thanks a lot, Puneet and everybody. We will be wrapping this session up. See you all
Thank,
2 weeks later. Bye bye.
thank you so much. Hats off to the team, to the Antibuddies team. You guys are fantastic.
Thanks a lot.